So it's been kind of a long time since I've actually dedicatedly read any books. Like, if I had to guess, not counting any of the books I read near the end of December, and even the first book of Wheel of Time, which I'm reading right now, in the last 5 years, I probably read about 5 or 6 books. But those are sporadically, obviously, spread apart. And, you know, now that I'm in kind of this beginning habit of reading on a more regular basis, when I find that I have free time and it's like, oh, what do I want to do? Instead of my mind going, well, let's play a video game, which it has done that. And I have done. Let's watch a TV show, which I have done. I'm finding that more and more it's kind of leaning toward the idea of let's continue the adventure that I'm currently reading. You see, I decided to get back into reading because I haven't dedicatedly read like when I was in middle grade, okay? Example, I never really read a whole lot. I basically would go to the library and check out books that, any normal boy would check out: snakes, lizards, spiders, wolves, tigers, those kind of nonfiction books. And one day I just randomly decided, let's go there. Let's check, see if I can find an actual storybook. Thus, they had the first 4 books in R.L. Stine's Goosebumps series. So I read them, obviously at different times, couldn't check them all out, but nevertheless devoured them. And then it became this constant thing of my parents: what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Christmas? What do I want? I want Goosebumps. That's what I want. Not in that tone or attitude, because I would have gotten in trouble, but that's neither here nor there. Point being is that my parents were buying me so many Goosebump books, and I was reading them all the time, that even my mom was like, all right, give me a couple of those. I want to read them. I got to make sure they're okay because you're devouring these things. And then she started to read and collect them herself. This is back in the day of Scholastic Book Club, when you could bring home those little pamphlet, little booklets, little mini booklets of Scholastic, and you could order stuff in it. That was the mass majority of the kind of books my mom would order, was Goosebump books, mostly for her, but occasionally, even if it wasn't my birthday or Christmas, she would get me a new book or a new set. But ultimately, her collection ended up being bigger than my own. In fact, she still has most of her original classic Goosebump books, where I do not. Point is I devoured them. This was a moment in time that also inspired me to want to be a writer. I think it was like on my 6th, 8th book, really can't remember. It could have been the 5th or 6th book. And I was like, this feeling that I feel right now, I want to give to another person. So then I would kind of occasionally read from after middle grade into high school. And then I really wouldn't die hard get back into it. We're talking staying up late, because that's what I did reading Goosebump books. Shove a shirt under the door to hide the light and read a book. And I haven't done that in years, obviously, because there's no need to, because I'm an adult. But in retrospect, jumping to like my early 20s, when I decided I'm going to get back into reading, and I went and I got Lawrence Watt Evans' The Obsidian Chronicles, book 2, ironically, instead of book 1, The Dragon Society. I ended up reading that, realized my mistake, first time reading a fantasy, or even a series. I guess because I read Goosebumps as a kid, I expected them to be standalone. I don't know. I don't really know what my thinking was. I really just didn't look at the back of the book or investigate it to see if this was honestly book 1, book 2. I was just like, hey, it's a book. The back sounds interesting. I'm going to go read it. And then, of course, I went back, got Dragon Weather, which is the first book. I had to wait for Dragon Venom, which is the third book. So I picked up A Song of Ice and Fire in the meantime. Better known today because of the TV series as Game of Thrones, which is the name of the first book. And I devoured them. We're talking, once again, another moment within my life where I was staying up late reading books, And I have not done that in quite a while, especially if I choose to ultimately do it, that iteration of just one more page, one more chapter. And it's like, that iteration of, oh, well, I'll just finish this chapter and then I'll go to bed. But then that ends and it's grabbed a hold of me and I have to turn the page. It doesn't matter that it's almost 3 a.m. and I might have to go to work or school when I was in middle grade. I need to continue onward in this adventure. And it was a great feeling. And I think because I stopped reading on a more regular basis, I ultimately forgot that feeling. And slowly but surely, from reading 3 particular books, it slowly, I think, ultimately is coming back and going to become the norm. So it started when I decided I am going to read the Wheel of Time in a year. Now, my goal here it's not about me reading the book series in a year. It's about me getting back into reading, basically using the excuse of trying to read the series in a year, which I've even done a few math. Based on the first book, it's got like 814 pages. I'd have to read roughly 60 pages every day just to finish the book in 2 weeks. Or 116, or we could round that to 120, if I wanted to finish it in 1 week. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not that fast of a speed reader. Point is, I jumped into Coraline because it was something that I had seen first as a film, but then decided to read the book. Now, this is roughly the size of a Goosebump book, maybe even just a hair 100 or so pages more. Actually, no, it's roughly about the size of a Goosebump book. So I could have finished it in a day. And when I say a day, we're talking, for me, 5-6 hours is roughly how long it would have took me to read. Again, I'm not a fast reader. I did at one time Google how to speed read, and I tried it, and it did work, but I also didn't like it at the same time. Like, I found that I could remember most of the stuff that I read, but I found if I read at my normal speed, I could remember more, which to me was more beneficial, and it was more entertaining and exciting than trying to force myself to speed read just to get through the book. So then it took me approximately a week to read this. That's how slow I read it, because I also read it when I felt like reading. I didn't want to force myself to read. So I only did it when I felt like reading. I think the breaking point is when I decided that I was going to take it to an appointment, and I read it while I was in the waiting room. This then, of course, spawned after that. I was looking at my books to see what else I could read, and then I was like, let's continue with the theme. I saw this movie before I read the book. There's this movie that I saw before I read the book, The Never-Ending Story. So I jumped into this. And I think this book is the one that kind of then I began to more dedicatedly read this one. If I had time, I could be playing a video game, be like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. And I would grab my book. I haven't done that in years. And then I also found it moments where it was like, oh, I want to do this, something completely different. But then like, for example, want to play a video game. I turn the machine on, I load up the game, and I'm in there, and I'm like, I don't really feel like doing this right now. I feel like reading The Never-Ending Story. That's what I feel like. So I turn it off, and then I go on my bed, and I begin reading. And this became the normal habit. There was... we even have an upgrade to this, because I did not take any of my books to work, because every time I took a book there, I rarely ever read. And that's usually because we have other people in the room, and I'll admit, it's kind of hard for me to concentrate on a story when someone's got their phone going, they're watching a video, or even though you're reading, people want to talk to you. That's always entertaining. That's sarcasm, by the way. Editing Kevin here, so apparently I never went and further talked about this later on in the video. Anyway, greater point that I was going to get to later but never did is that I actually have been reading at work. And then when I finished this, I was like, I can't stop. If I stop reading, I'm going to get into my old habit. I need to continue. So I went and I was looking at my books, and I was like, you know what? Let's continue the phenomenon, the series that I was going down. Not really the series, I don't really know the word I would want, but I saw this as well as a movie, as a cartoon. I didn't even know it was based on a book. Miss Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. To which I then also found out that they actually have, where did I put it? They also have a couple of sequels that were, granted, there is the Secret of Nim 2, the Timmy to the Rescue. It's, yeah, it's all right for a cartoon. I honestly don't remember much of it. I think the first one is obviously better, but we have a sequel and a third one. I believe this is the sequel. This is the third one. This is the least liked out of all three of the books. From reading reviews, people like this. It's kind of relatively close to the original. The problem with this one is it introduces a human child, which even when I read that, not reading the book, but read it in a review, I was like, that is stupid. I mean, that to me, that just kind of takes away from the fantasy and the world of the rats. Yeah, we know humans are there, but them interacting with a human, yes, we could sit here and say at some point it probably would happen within the world, but as a reader, I don't really find that idea entertaining, but I'll let you know more when I actually read it. Anyway, point being is I began to devour this book as well. I actually read this, I think, in like 2.5 days. So I think it's roughly, okay, it's like 130, yeah, 130 pages, plus or minus one or two longer than this. So again, I probably could have read it in a day, but I'm not speed reading here. And then I finished this and I was like, well, what do? I was like, I got like half a day. Yeah, like half a day before it's January and I'm supposed to start my Wheel of Time adventure. And I just came to the point where I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to start the Wheel of Time. So I grabbed it, put my bookmark in there, and I didn't read it. I just kind of set it down. And then later that night when I went to bed, I read the prologue to it. And I think one page of the first chapter. Anyway, I'm at page 90 now. Minor spoilers. We're kind of at the Trollocs, and I believe it's a Fade coming in to Edmund. If I pronounce or mispronounce that, that's a possibility too. And yeah, so the adventure is going. And as I read through the book, because I originally read, the first, second, and third book, and I've listened to the first 4 audio books, my mind starts to remember things from other books or different scenes from another book here and there as I'm reading. Also entertaining, I'll randomly have a character name pop up in my head. Like yesterday I was at work. I was like, Podon Fane. I was like, I've heard that somewhere. I've read that somewhere. Who is that? That's got to be a character. It must be in the Wheel of Time because I'm reading the Wheel of Time. And ironically, he popped in my head because he's also in roughly the beginning of the book. He's the peddler. It's just really exciting to be back into dedicatedly reading, to where this isn't just like, oh, I should read because I'm not reading that much. I would have to say that like the last 5 years and any book that I did read, it was kind of more of that thought process. And now I think I can officially say that I am back into a reading space where I will continue to do it because it's also kind of reigniting this old flame. I would say the old flame that originally got me to want to be inspired to be an author, a writer myself. I also found that, when I was my most creative, when I wrote the most, is also when I still read a lot of books. Even when I was in the military, in the Navy, because there's not a whole lot to do on an aircraft carrier when you're in the middle of nowhere, I brought books and I bought a laptop so I could work on stories. So those were the two main things that I did. I'd read, and it was great because our little bunks had a light so we could turn the light on and read a book. Didn't need no book light or nothing like that. And then there were other times where I would stay up, right? And then unironically go to bed, depending on how late I stayed up, because you had to be up bumfuck, before the chickens. To go to work. Great times. All right. Great times. This adventure of, like, oh, I'm going to read the Wheel of Time. And then it was like, well, I should start reading before that. And I'm very glad that I did because it got me back into this time, this moment of remembering the joy of reading. It's the reading itself was the whole thing that inspired me to want to be a writer. And I've ultimately, thinking about it here and now, I was probably, I would dare say, my most creative or dedicated writing when I was also reading on a regular basis. I just thought I'd create this video because, I don't see too many people that just talk about the pure joy and amazingness that reading can and does instill within people. You just kind of lose yourself. You forget that you're laying on your bed or you're sitting in your chair and you're enthralled within these worlds with these characters. You're the third wheel that they never interact with because they don't know you're there. All right, you're the shadow they never see. You're the spy they never hear as you listen in onto every conversation they have. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video of me reminiscing about different periods when I read and getting back, not just into reading, but that feeling of wanting to read. I need to read more. I need to continue the story. I mean, I honestly forgot how great it was. And honestly, I can't even tell you why I stopped reading on a more regular basis. But it's great to be back and reading again.